What scares me most about kidney problems isn't the pain. It's the fact that your kidneys can be losing function for years without giving you a clear warning. I learned that by watching my own father. For most of his life, he thought his kidneys were one of those organs you simply didn't need to think about. He never smoked. He wasn't overweight. He walked most mornings. And because nothing hurt, he assumed everything was fine. But the small things added up. The salty foods he loved. The snacks he ate at night. The days he barely drank enough water. And those slightly worse numbers at the doctor's office that he dismissed as, "That's just what happens when you get older." That mindset is far more dangerous than most people realize. Because your kidneys don't always scream when something is going wrong. Sometimes they simply become a little less efficient than a little less. And by the time you finally notice something is wrong, you've already lost valuable ground. So today, I want to show you 8 ordinary fruits that can fit into a kidney-conscious diet after 60. And I'm not going to tell you that any fruit can magically repair damaged kidneys, because that's simply not true. But one of these 8 stands out for a very specific reason, and the fruit that comes first isn't necessarily the one you should be eating most often. So stay with me, because the order matters, and by the end, you'll know which fruits may be worth keeping in your kitchen, which ones require more caution, and why your kidneys may care more about your everyday food choices than you realize. If you're over 60, or you're the one keeping an eye on a parent's health, this channel is built for exactly that. We try to keep things simple and practical. No scare tactics, no miracle claims, just information you can actually use. If that's useful to you, go ahead and subscribe and tap like, so this reaches someone else who needs it too. Now let's get into it. Here's something worth sitting with for a second. After 60, we tend to assume that feeling a bit more tired, moving a bit slower, or seeing a few numbers creep in the wrong direction on a lab report is just what getting older looks like. Sometimes that's true. But a lot of the time, it isn't inevitable. It's the slow result of small daily choices that quietly added up over decades. And the encouraging part of that is simple. If small choices got you here, small choices can also start moving things in a better direction. It's genuinely not too late to pay closer attention. What your kidneys are actually doing. Quick refresher, and I promise to keep this simple. Your kidneys are 2 fist-sized organs that filter your blood, clear out waste products, balance your fluids, help regulate blood pressure, and keep minerals like potassium and sodium in a healthy range. They work around the clock, including while you sleep. Kidney function can decline somewhat with age, but getting older is not the same thing as having kidney disease. The 2 biggest risk factors for chronic kidney disease are high blood pressure and diabetes, both of which are heavily influenced by diet, activity, weight, and yes, sleep and stress. Diet quality matters. Whole fruit can be a genuinely useful part of a healthy eating pattern for a lot of people. But if you already have diagnosed kidney disease, some of that changes, because your kidneys may not be able to handle certain minerals, especially potassium and phosphorus, the way healthy kidneys can. I'll come back to that. With that foundation, let's get into the countdown. Number 8, pineapple. We're starting with pineapple for a reason, because this is where a lot of kidney health advice online starts going wrong. You've probably heard people say pineapple can cleanse your kidneys, flush out toxins, or even help repair them. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Your kidneys don't need a fruit to clean them. And pineapple is not a kidney repair treatment. Pineapple does contain vitamin C and bromelain, an enzyme that's been studied for things like inflammation and digestion. That's interesting. But the evidence does not show that eating pineapple improves damaged kidney function. So why is it on this list? Because for someone over 60, a small portion of fresh pineapple can be a much smarter dessert than many processed alternatives. You get sweetness, some fiber, and vitamin C without automatically reaching for cookies, cakes, or heavily processed snacks. But there's a catch. Natural sugar is still sugar your body has to deal with. A large bowl of pineapple every night isn't automatically healthy just because it came from a fruit, and if you have diabetes or you're watching your blood sugar, that evening portion matters even more. So pineapple earns number 8, but don't get too comfortable with that ranking, because the next fruit creates a completely different problem. Number 7. Grapes. Grapes look innocent. They're small, they're easy to eat, they're a fruit, And that's exactly why people can accidentally eat far more of them than they realize. A handful can quickly turn into 2 handfuls, then another few while you're watching television. Whole grapes contain polyphenols, plant compounds that have been studied for cardiovascular health, and that's relevant because your heart and kidneys are closely connected through your blood vessels. But here's the twist. The moment you turn those grapes into juice, you've changed the game. Whole grapes give you fiber and require chewing. Grape juice delivers the sweetness much faster and makes it incredibly easy to consume the equivalent of several servings without feeling like you've eaten very much. So if you're choosing between a small serving of whole grapes and a glass of grape juice at night, the whole fruit is generally the smarter choice. But there's another reason I'm keeping grapes at number 7. They contain potassium. For most healthy people, that's not automatically a problem. But if your kidneys are already significantly impaired and you've been told to restrict potassium, healthy fruit doesn't automatically mean unlimited fruit. And remember that point, because we're going to build on it. The higher we go on this list, the more important the difference becomes between a generally healthy fruit and a fruit that may actually fit your individual kidney situation. And number 6 is where this gets especially interesting, because the next fruit is one many people think is automatically safe, simply because it's considered healthy. It isn't that simple. Number 6, cranberries. Cranberries make this list for a reason that has nothing to do with the kidney detox claims you see online. There's actually some legitimate research behind cranberries, particularly around recurrent urinary tract infections. A well-known Cochrane review found that cranberry products may reduce the risk of recurring UTIs in certain groups, including women who are prone to them. But here's the mistake I don't want you to make. A urinary tract infection is not the same thing as chronic kidney disease. Cranberries haven't been proven to repair damaged kidneys or prevent chronic kidney disease. So, why keep them at number 6? Because fresh cranberries are naturally tart and relatively low in sugar and potassium compared with many sweeter fruits. That can make them an interesting option for someone who wants a small evening fruit serving without loading up on sweetness. But there's a trap hiding in the word cranberry. A handful of fresh cranberries is one thing. A bottle of cranberry juice cocktail can be something completely different. Some commercial cranberry drinks contain a surprising amount of added sugar. You're essentially taking a fruit with a sharp, naturally tart flavor and turning it into a sweetened beverage. So, always check the label. And there's another reason. Cranberries only make number 6. The next fruit has something cranberries don't. And that difference becomes important when we're talking about what happens in your body overnight. Number 5, tart cherries. Now we're getting into a fruit that's especially interesting for an evening routine. Tart cherries get their deep red color from compounds called anthocyanins, which have antioxidant and anti-inflammatory properties. Research has also explored tart cherries in areas like exercise recovery and sleep quality. And that's where things get interesting. Because when you're talking about kidney health after 60, you shouldn't only think about the kidneys themselves. You also have to think about blood pressure, blood vessels, inflammation, blood sugar, and sleep. All of these can influence the overall environment your kidneys are working in. But don't let that turn tart cherry juice into a miracle drink. It isn't. There isn't strong evidence that tart cherries repair damaged kidneys or detox them overnight. And here's the mistake I really want you to avoid. More is not necessarily better. A large glass of sweetened tart cherry juice can give you a substantial amount of sugar without giving you the same fullness you'd get from eating whole fruit. So if you enjoy tart cherries, keep the portion modest and look for whole fruit or an unsweetened option, rather than a sugary commercial drink. Now notice what's happening. At number 8, we talked about natural sugar. At number 7, we talked about portion size and potassium. At number 6, we exposed the difference between a healthy fruit and a sugary fruit product. And at number 5, we're seeing that the best choice isn't always about the fruit itself. It's about what form you eat it in. But from number 4 onward, we're going to change the criteria, because the next fruits aren't simply here because they contain vitamins or antioxidants. They're here because of what they bring to the table, and one of them has a kidney-related advantage that most people completely overlook. Number 4. Raspberries. Raspberries deserve more attention, especially after 60. They're unusually high in fiber, which can help with digestion and also slow the rise in blood sugar after eating. They're naturally lower in sugar than many fruits and packed with polyphenols and anthocyanins. A cup of fresh or thawed frozen raspberries can make a surprisingly filling evening snack without feeling heavy. But here's the catch. The raspberry isn't always the problem. What you turn it into is. Raspberry jam, syrup, pastries, and sugary desserts can take a naturally nutritious fruit and turn it into a very different food. So keep the fruit simple. And remember that, because the next fruit is even more common, and there's one mistake people make with it that can completely change what looks like a healthy evening snack. Number 3. Strawberries. Strawberries earn number 3 because they're easy to find, low in calories, and provide vitamin C, fiber, and beneficial plant compounds. Research on berries has also linked them with cardiovascular health, which matters because your heart and kidneys are more connected than most people realize. But don't let the word strawberry fool you. A bowl of fresh strawberries is one thing. A strawberry milkshake, shortcake, or heavily sweetened strawberry yogurt is something else entirely. The label may say strawberry, but your kidneys don't care what the package says. They care about what's actually inside it. And now we're getting close to the top. Because number 2 is where the list takes a surprising turn. It's a fruit many people avoid for the wrong reason. Number 2. Apples. We're almost at number 1, and number 2 is one of the most practical fruits you can eat after 60. Apples. They're rich in fiber, including pectin. And they're relatively lower in potassium than many other fruits, which can make them a useful option for some people who need to watch potassium. But here's what makes apples so underrated. They're cheap, they keep well, you don't need to prepare them. And one whole apple is a very different food from a glass of apple juice. Juicing removes most of the fiber and makes it much easier to consume a large amount of sugar quickly. So, if you're having an apple in the evening, eat the whole fruit. Wash the skin well if you tolerate it, and skip the sugary juice. But here's the interesting part. The fruit at number 1 has many of the same advantages. But it brings something extra that makes it especially interesting for kidney-conscious eating. And it's probably already sitting in your local grocery store. Number 1, blueberries. Blueberries take the number 1 spot. Not because they detox your kidneys, not because they can reverse kidney disease, and definitely not because eating them before bed somehow repairs your kidneys overnight. They take the top spot because they're an unusually simple way to add fiber and anthocyanins, powerful plant compounds that have been studied extensively for their relationship with blood vessel function and cardiovascular health. And that matters, because your kidneys depend heavily on healthy blood vessels. Research on berries and cardiovascular health is encouraging, although much of the long-term evidence is observational, so we shouldn't turn it into a promise that blueberries directly prevent or reverse kidney disease. There's another practical advantage too. Blueberries are relatively low in calories, provide fiber, and are moderate in potassium, rather than being among the highest potassium fruits. For many people, a modest serving can fit comfortably into a kidney-conscious eating pattern. But there's one important catch. If your kidneys are significantly impaired, your potassium target is personal. The same fruit that works perfectly well for one person may need to be limited for another. So don't follow a generic kidney diet blindly. Know your numbers, know your potassium limit, and know what your doctor or dietitian has actually recommended for you. A reasonable serving for many people is around 3/4 to 1 cup, fresh or frozen. And frozen is absolutely fine. It can be cheaper, lasts longer, and still gives you the nutritional benefits of the fruit. But here's the biggest lesson from this entire list. Your kidneys don't need a miracle fruit. They need fewer bad habits repeated every day. A handful of blueberries won't undo a diet built around excessive sodium, sugary drinks, processed foods, or poorly controlled blood pressure. But replacing a processed evening dessert with a sensible portion of whole fruit? That's the kind of small decision that can actually become part of a healthier long-term routine. And if you're over 60, that's the real goal. Not a miracle, not a detox, just better choices, repeated consistently. Does eating fruit before bed actually matter? Now let's answer the question behind the entire video. Does eating fruit before bed actually help your kidneys? The honest answer is, there's no special 9 p.m. window that suddenly makes fruit medicinal. Your kidneys don't look at the clock and say, "It's nighttime, let's process this differently." What matters far more is what you're eating across the entire day, how much you're eating, and whether that evening snack fits your individual health needs. For some people, a small serving of whole fruit at night can be a perfectly reasonable way to satisfy a sweet craving without reaching for cookies, cake, or processed snacks. For others, eating right before bed may worsen reflux, disrupt blood sugar control, or simply add calories they don't need. And if you have kidney disease, especially if you've been told to restrict potassium, don't assume that every fruit on this list is automatically safe for you. Your kidney function and potassium target are personal. If you asked me what I'd actually do tonight, if you were sitting across from me and asked, "Okay, what should I actually do tonight?" I'd keep it simple. Choose whole fruit instead of juice. Keep the portion modest, roughly what fits in your cupped hand. Don't turn it into a sugary dessert with syrup, jam, or added sugar. And if you have kidney disease, diabetes, or take medications that could affect your diet choices, check with your doctor or renal dietitian before making major changes. But here's the bigger lesson I want you to remember. Your kidneys don't need a miracle fruit. They need you to stop making the small choices that quietly work against them, day after day, year after year. Managing your blood pressure, keeping blood sugar under control, staying active, following your prescribed medications, watching your sodium intake, and getting your kidney function checked when your doctor recommends it. Because the most dangerous health mistake after 60 isn't eating the wrong fruit one night, it's assuming you're fine because nothing hurts. Kidney problems can stay quiet for a long time, so don't wait for your body to make the warning impossible to ignore. Know your numbers, know your risks, and make the small choices now while they still matter. 3 mistakes worth avoiding. Let me leave you with 3 mistakes I see people make constantly with fruit, because avoiding them matters more than which fruit you pick. Mistake 1. Treating fruit juice as nutritionally the same as whole fruit. It isn't. Juicing removes the fiber that slows sugar absorption and fills you up, leaving mostly concentrated sugar behind. Mistake 2. Assuming that because a sugar is natural, the amount doesn't matter. Your body doesn't fully distinguish between natural fruit sugar, eaten in excess, and other sugars when it comes to your blood sugar and calorie totals. Portion still counts. Mistake 3. Believing a healthy fruit choice can offset an otherwise unmanaged diet. Uncontrolled blood pressure, smoking, or inactivity. It can't. Fruit is one piece of a much larger picture, not a substitute for the rest of it. Which of these fruits do you already eat regularly? Tell me in the comments. I'm genuinely curious how many of you are already doing some of this without realizing it. Coming back to my father, I want to come back to where we started. When I think about my father now, I don't think about some fruit or supplement that could have changed everything, if only we'd known about it sooner. That's not really how any of this works, and I think it does people a disservice to pretend otherwise. What I think about instead is all the small decisions that felt too minor to matter at the time. What was in the kitchen at 9 p.m. Whether the day included a walk, whether the blood pressure medication got taken consistently. None of those choices felt significant in the moment. Added up over years, they were. That's the lesson I actually want you to take from this video. Not, eat blueberries and you'll be fine. But the small, boring, repeatable choices are the ones that quietly decide how the next 20 years go, and you get to keep making better ones starting today, regardless of what the last 20 years looked like. If you have kidney disease, or you're not sure about your kidney function, here are 3 questions worth taking to your next appointment. Do I know my current kidney function? Have I ever been told to limit potassium, phosphorus, sodium, or fluids? And do any of my medications or conditions change what foods make sense for me? Those 3 questions will get you more useful, personalized guidance than any general video ever could, mine included. If this video taught you something you hadn't thought about before, subscribe to the channel. Tap like so it reaches someone else who's over 60 or caring for someone who is, and consider sending it to a parent. spouse, or friend who's trying to age well. Sometimes one video or one conversation is what finally gets someone to pay closer attention to their health. You don't have to overhaul your entire life tonight. Most of the time, protecting your future starts with one small, unremarkable decision you make this evening, and then again tomorrow. Comment kidneys below if you'd like a follow-up video on the everyday habits that quietly affect kidney health over time. I'll see you in the next one.